Hi everybody, this is Dr. Mark Sperling, and this is EDFA 609, Legal Aspects of American Education, Part 1. In the next few minutes I'm going to go over parts of the course for you to become familiar with as you begin this module of 5 weeks discussing school law. This is a very interesting course, and it's a course that I truly enjoy teaching and have taught for a number of years at a couple of universities. This course is going to cover legal and ethical responsibilities within the scope of school law. It's going to cover the impact of school law and some history and current perspectives of this legal system for education. The course is divided into these general categories: basic legal structure, which you'll find in the first few chapters of the text; religious issues, including those of church and state; student rights, speech and expression, privacy, common law, due process, and statutory protections for students, and attendance law; teacher rights and responsibilities, including academic freedom in curriculum and instruction, and due process for teachers in those situations where teachers find themselves in conflict with either the contract or situations of discipline within the teaching environment. We'll also address employments and contracts and a little bit on collective negotiation. At the very end of the course, I've also included a section on the U.S. Supreme Court decisions between 2007 and 2010 for your information. Within the course, we're going to look at real specifically the governance of public schools, separation of church and state, once again school attendance, instructional programming. We'll touch on Public Law 221 from Indiana, which many of you from Indiana know has just recently undergone some changes. We'll talk a little bit about student rights with and without disabilities and harassment as it applies to due process. We'll look at student records, a little bit of liabilities of the school districts and individual school administrators, teacher rights including due process, a little bit on collective bargaining or collective negotiation, academic and religious freedoms that are allowed under court decisions and under the Constitution. We've just concluded a section on financing of schools in the past course. Discrimination, civil rights, and desegregation will be covered in the second course of law. You'll notice that I have listed for you out of the American School Board Journal issues for 2009 and 2010 that are considered the top for teachers and administrators. Employee discrimination and termination appear in both years. Financing adequacies and equity issues are in both years. Student discipline, collective bargaining, employment issues related to the changes in the ADA and FMLA. Private placement issues related to special ed, disputes regarding attorney fees in special ed cases, free speech, educators' sexual misconduct, and No Child Left Behind interventions. In 2010, you'll also notice employees and student misuse of the Internet, which we know is becoming a larger and larger issue, including cyberbullying. Civil rights and discrimination, which again we'll talk about in the next course, and some thoughts about school board members' governance. Other issues of importance in 2010, which I think really are ongoing issues, are student searches, Fourth Amendment, which we'll talk about a little bit in this course, civil rights in the next course, free speech, First Amendment rights we'll talk about in this course, sexual harassment and sex discrimination, both in this course and the next course as we begin to talk about Title IX, employment topics such as ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA, the denial of free and appropriate public education, which is commonly called FAPE and is part of special ed law, Section 504 from the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, which is an accommodations act for students with disabilities, No Child Left Behind, and both a little bit in this course and the next course we'll talk about contract issues such as a superintendent or buying of supplies. I want to also go over something that was shared with me by Dr. Colin, who of course is the Department Chair of Educational Administration Graduate Studies at Purdue. And I'm going to read these exactly because they're very important. 1. There is no such thing as a clear decision in a court of law. 2. There is no rule that requires court decisions to be consistent with one another, and you'll see that as we discuss various cases. 3. Just because a court has rules on an issue does not mean that schools will follow the decision unless someone catches them on it. Law is always a matter of who complains about things as to how precedents are set. Your instructor, me, is merely teaching you the law. I'm not responsible for the law. Therefore, when you disagree with a decision, please don't blame me for it and don't argue a whole lot about it. It is what it is, and it is about the interpretation of the law by the various court systems. This course is not underlined, designed to make you a schoolhouse lawyer or attorney. Always a better idea to consult corporation attorney or district attorneys or central office, since there are no absolutes in school law. These are very important concepts and precepts. Please be mindful of them. The textbook for the course is Alexander and Alexander from 2012, American Public School Law, 8th edition, published by Wadsworth or Cengage. It is a compilation of cases that have been decided on the U.S. Supreme Court, federal court, and district court levels, and have influenced school law across the country. We'll also, as we go along, talk about some local laws that many of you will be familiar with. The assignments for the course are based on the scoring rubrics for each of the course activities. There is a case brief activity in several of the weeks and a final assignment of case briefs that we'll talk about at another time, but you'll notice in the resource section of the course. You'll also notice the assignment called as Field Experience or Student Discipline Handbook Analysis Portfolio Entry. Both of these assignments due in Module 4 and Module 5 will be covered in the resource section. They are to be posted on both Epic in the assignment section and on TaskStream. There is a final exam in this course. Each week I'll give you some questions relative to the areas that we're studying. At the end, all those questions will be repeated, and it'll just be a matter of getting all 20 of them right. Or actually, I believe there are 28 in this section. Make sure that on the assignments you get them in on time. There is a 15% deduction for late papers, and please use APA format without any spelling or grammatical errors. You'll also notice a number of other textbook resources that I've used along the way. There are some that are dated in the 2008s and 2009s and 2010s that are reprints of these books. The one that I particularly look at is a book called The Ethics of School Administration by Strike, Haller, and Saltis. I'm not sure if that's in this resource guide. It's an excellent book. It's published by the Teacher College Press in New York, Columbia University. I would certainly encourage you to have a copy of The Ethics of School Administration, if at all possible. I also want to briefly go over some sources of school law. Besides the federal and state statutes, which are all the clauses, all the amendments, the Constitution, etc., that you will find helpful in your study of law. Article 1, Section 8, which is the General Welfare Clause. The Civil Rights Acts of 64 and 68, which again is covered in the next course, but Section 504, the Rehab Act of 1973, the Americans with Disabilities Act, Title IX, the Educational Amendments of 1972, the Individual with Disability in Education Act, No Child Left Behind, which is actually called the Elementary and Secondary Reauthorization Act. President George Bush kind of renamed it as that was one of his platforms. Also, sources of school law will be the Constitution of your state. The state of Indiana and all the sections are noted. In the United States Constitution, education is not mentioned. However, there is impact on educational law in the Bill of Rights in the 1st, 4th, 5th, 8th, and 9th Amendments. Freedom of speech, unreasonable search and seizure, no deprivation of life, liberty, or property, usually in eminent domain cases, cruel and unusual punishment, constitutional right of privacy, and due process and equal protection. You'll notice a number of cases are brought before the courts in each of these areas. You'll also notice school law in terms of state process or procedures, or legislative agendas, collective bargaining agreements as established in Public Law 217 or whatever the public law is in your particular state. In the 2011 Indiana General Assembly, bargaining units were disallowed from negotiating contracts which do not specifically only entail wages and wage-related fringe benefits. They no longer have the right to bargain working conditions, seniority, and all those things. Teacher evaluation is completely off the table. Individual school policies and rules consistent with school boards, State Board of Education rules and procedures, state law, Title 20, in Indiana, that's the various aspects of school administration. 21 have to do with the educational finance and etc. You'll also notice a number of secondary sources. I wish you great success in this course. It is very interesting information. Even though we'll be going through it relatively quickly in 5 weeks, hopefully over the 10-week period of both courses you'll have a pretty good outline and foundation for challenges that you'll face in your careers in education administration.